My name is Katie Schlender. I am an Associate Program Officer at the International Trade Center, and I'm also the project manager for projects called the Refugee Employment and Skills Initiative in Kenya. So innovation is something I do as a volunteer, actually, at ITC.
Yeah, and my name is Adriana De Oro. As Joanna mentioned, I'm Project Design and Innovation Coordinator at ITC. I am sitting actually in the same office as Katie does at the Division of Country Programs, Office of the Director, where I also work on the project that she's managing, the Refugee Employment and Skills Initiative, and I'm part of the and I'm in charge of the market access, so creating connections between our beneficiaries and clients to ensure the sustainability of their businesses and sustainable income. So for this webinar, I'm going to wear the hat also of the innovation coordinator side, and then I'm very glad to be here today to share those experiences with you. So, shall we get started? Yeah. Great, excellent. So welcome again to this webinar. We're very excited to introduce you today to the Innovation Lab at the International Trade Center. We are also hoping that you are all keeping safe and healthy at home, and then that you're finding productive ways to learn, to work, to spend your time at home. And as I mentioned, we are Adriana and Katie, and we will be explaining to you today our services, a little bit of what we are doing. And the way that we're going to organize this presentation is that we're going to first start with a small introduction to ITC, then talking to our mission, our structure, our journey, and then give you an overview of some of the activities that we do at the Innovation Lab. So I'm going to leave the floor to Katie to explain to you about the organization a bit.
Great, so some of you might already have heard of ITC, the International Trade Center. Some of you might not have, that's totally fine. So ITC, we're the Joint Development Agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. And we're fully dedicated to the development and internationalization of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. So essentially what that means is that ITC, as a UN agency, we focus on supporting these small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, to trade and to engage in export potential in international markets. And we also try to support the business environment around them. So working with policymakers or trade support institutions and the business community to ensure that those businesses are able to engage in trade. The purpose of that being that we hope these companies can grow, compete in bigger markets, and make more revenue, so ultimately contributing to trade impact for good.
And then, as we are working with small and medium-sized enterprises, these are one of the actors that are the most innovative, that need to adapt to the changing environment, the changing economic landscape, for example. And so the organization ITC has to do the same. So it needs to constantly change, innovate, adapt its work to the needs of the beneficiaries, in that case, the small and medium-sized enterprises. So this is why innovation for us, it's not pretty much a new thing. So for us, innovation, it's not born at the time of that the lab was born precisely. We have been saying that innovation, it's there, and everybody is an innovator at ITC. It's just that we might not acknowledge our innovation capacity, all of us, and that's why also our work is focusing on unleashing that capacity. But as you can see in our strategic plan from 2018 to 2021, we have stated the innovation as the core part of our mandate in the organization. We say that ITC is capable of rapidly changing and adapting to the needs of its partners, and we believe that constant innovation and creativity we need to respond to that demand, and we embed new technologies in our project solutions and business processes wherever this can add value to our clients. This is how we link also our work at the Innovation Lab with the corporate vision about change and about transformation. So the Innovation Lab mission is to unleash and foster creativity at the core of all of what ITC does. And we do it working closely with ITC people, with interns, consultants, staff. And now we have done it very recently with the field coordinators. We started to see with them how to adapt our services to better provide or help them to improve what it's done on the delivery of ITC projects. So this is ultimately to help the organization to stay ahead of the curve in trade-related technical assistance. To talk to a bit of our structure in the organization, the lab was created about 5 years ago, and it started very much as a volunteer-based structure. So the model, it is at also the core of what we do. We started with around 3 members from 2 different divisions, and at the time they were just very motivated to create or to incorporate new approaches in the way that we deliver projects in the organizations. So they started to advocate for more innovative thinking, and then to get to know different approaches on innovation methodologies, for example. And then they got to motivate some enthusiasts of innovation, kind of the first adopters of innovation, right? As we all have in the different organizations that we work in. So these people started also to take the lead on activities, and that's how the membership started to grow. So the old members started to bring new members, and also we realized that this was a part of the core of the lab, the membership structure, the volunteer membership structure. So we decided also to create outreach activities to target members to come in at the lab and to start to use the services, to start to use the space that we have, the resources that we have available, and to lead on the creation of activities, initiatives that are going to support ITC to deliver better in our projects. So this is the first element that I would mention that it's essential to our structure. We have also a horizontal decision-making process. That's basically that no one at the lab has the last word on deciding on activities, but we just engage. And every Thursday morning we meet at 9:15, and we can discuss on the several ideas that we have. We can obtain the advice from the other team members, and we can also onboard new members that arrive to the meetings. And that the purpose being is that we democratize the way that activities are done, and we don't consider that there should be just one way of doing things or one person deciding. We all have a voice, and this has been adopted even across the board for all the members participating in the group, in the team. Also, a third important element that we can see in our structure is the membership that's very diverse, that they participate from across the organization. We have 4 different divisions at ITC, and we have members from each one of the divisions. So this allows us ultimately to be more collaborative, to be more flexible, and also to incorporate a lot of creativity and inject a lot of creativity in all that we do, because people, when they come with fresh, new ideas, and that's one of the things that we love at the lab. One of the last things that I would like to mention that it's very important also for our structure is the senior management support that we have had since the beginning, because even though we are a volunteer-based structure and we are grassroots and we function in a very horizontal way, without the senior management support, we wouldn't have had what we had so far, the space and some resources available that have allowed us to organize the activities in the benefit of the whole organization. So I think that wraps out what it's the bottom-up structure model. Just to mention also briefly that it is in the core of our mandate, it is to foster innovation at ITC. So we have it in our minds that even if we want to be flexible, even if we want to push the organization to go beyond the normal mandate that you have in order to improve the services and how we deliver services, we know that we need to go hand in hand with the corporate strategy. So this is why last year we developed a 3-year strategy, and each year we have been developing an operational plan following a theory of change that is very much attached to the corporate theory of change that ultimately seeks inclusive and sustainable development. And for us, we see innovation also as an ITC that innovates for good trade, that it's our ultimate mandate as well.
So I think now that Adri kind of gave this background of how the lab currently looks and our current structure, I'll just take 1 minute or so to explain the journey of the Innovation Lab. So as Adriana already mentioned, the lab was founded about 5 years ago in December 2014 by a small group of people. And since then, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been kind of going through the growth period of what you would imagine a small startup to experience. So we had the ideation phase where we were really just trying to understand what are the needs of ITC and how can innovation help meet those needs. So then in the incubation period, which was another about 1.5 year long phase, we were testing a variety of programs and services that we developed. And we were doing them once or twice, essentially to see what worked well and what needed to be improved to be the correct fit for ITC to better deliver our work. Then finally, within the last 2 years, we had the consolidation phase. So we took those programs that we were testing in the incubation phase and we more so formalized them in the consolidation period. So it became more the third time that we were doing things. The approach got a bit solid and more structured into the work plan for the year. That being said, we're in a period of change and growth, and so the organization is also changing and growing, which means that the lab, to continue to meet the needs of ITC, needs to change with it, which is why in 2020 we've adapted a bit our services and our delivery so that we can continue to be the most impactful within the organization. And we'll touch on that in a bit later near the end of the presentation. So the core areas of work that the Innovation Lab has, we have them kind of broken down in the past into programs, on-demand services, and a toolkit. And then engaging with the innovation ecosystem is a cross-cutting theme across all 3 of those areas of work. So essentially what we did is when we looked at the needs of ITC and we tried to see where the lab best fit, then we had these areas that emerged. And so in the programs, for example, we offer an innovation design boot camp. We have the Innovation Champions program, which is an internal ambassador program for innovation ambassadors inside of ITC. Then we have on-demand services, which is primarily our creative consulting delivery option. So that means that a team can come to the lab and say they have a challenge or they need support in some particular activity, and they can solve a challenge or design a solution to it through the methodologies we provide in the toolkit. And the toolkit includes things like the pitch roulette, which is a tool that you can use to test your presentation skills and get feedback. We have Solutions Clinic and the Brainstorm Factory, which also allow people to use human-centered design to either specify a solution that they want to roll out or develop ideas to solve a challenge. So in the past few years, this is where all of our work has been focusing on to, of course, achieve the mission that Adriana mentioned, which was making sure ITC is reaching its full creative potential. So we have done a lot in 2019, especially if we think that it's primarily volunteers who are giving their time. So I just want to highlight a few specific activities that I think are worth mentioning. We have the Innovation Heroes Award Gala, which happens every year, that recognizes people's innovation or creative work that they've done from across the house. So it's not like it's the Innovation Lab who is saying, oh, these people, deserve to be recognized. It's actually a peer nominated process where people can nominate their colleagues from across the organization who they think deserve to win recognition for the creative work that they're doing. So we find that that's been a great experience for people to learn and realize that within the ITC, people are doing very cool things. And the Innovation Heroes Gala essentially gives it a bit of a platform for recognition. for that creative work. Through the Innovation Champions program, which, as I mentioned, it's an internal ambassadors program, we had one of the Innovation Champions work with the lab to design something that was called a career checkup. It was essentially a speed dating activity between senior and junior level people within ITC, and it was meant to improve the kind of the internal communication and collaboration. It was very successful last year, so we hope to do another version of it this year. And finally, another piece of what the lab does is try to look at what is relevant and useful in the innovation space in terms of tools and trainings, and see how we can adapt them to meet ITC's needs. So last year we ran a training with an external consultant on Agile, the Agile methodology, and we're currently working at adapting that to be more relevant for ITC's workflows and processes. So again, trying to be the translating link between what's maybe out there in the ecosystem and how it's most relevant for the organization. To give a bit more perspective on what the lab is doing, I wanted to highlight one of the boot camps. So we have the boot camp 555, which means that it was a design boot camp that took place over 5 days with 5 teams, and the award was $5,000 to develop the prototype of the winning solution. So we asked teams to submit challenges, a concrete challenge, as well as their participants that could be solved through a digital solution, because we were using the user experience UX design methodology, which works best with digital tools. So we had a wide range of challenges in this boot camp. You know, we were looking at displacement inclusive businesses, a concept for an SDG Champions initiative, as well as looking at e-commerce challenges. So part of the beauty of the boot camps is that it brings together people from across ITC, different divisions, different sections, and it allows them to not only use innovation tools to design their solution, but to talk to other people in the building and to better understand, you know, what they're doing and how we can cross-pollinate, if you will, between the different teams. So the winning solution was actually called the Alliances for Action platform. It's an ITC approach, and they were looking at how to use a mobile application to improve the interaction of farmers with their local networks of partners so that they could improve the efficiency of agricultural value chains. So it's an example of how you can take something that's very mainstream and broad, maybe like innovation, and really get it down to very specific about how it's impacting our work as an organization. And finally, before we move on to hand over to Adriana, we launched the first ever podcast last year at the end of 2019. So in conjunction with a variety of sections from internally ITC, external experts, as well as the communications team within ITC, we developed a podcast series called Trade Forward. And we also worked with UN Radio at the United Nations office in Geneva so that we could develop this podcast. And essentially it's looking at exploring the untold trade stories and looking at how innovation and trade are intersecting for, you know, the current transformations we're seeing in the economy. So that was very exciting, very collaborative. We had to bring a lot of different people on board for that. And we're still piloting actually this year. So if you want to check out the pilot version of the Trade Forward podcast, it is available on iTunes and Spotify. So over to Adriana. She's going to explain a bit more about the lab going forward, since I just spent the last few minutes explaining what we have done in the past.
Yes, sure. But well, yeah, as Katie mentioned, well, all of these interesting initiatives are, we take them in a very iterative way, right? So all what it works, we keep doing it, but we always take into account the feedback loop from the users. So in this case, if we do like, for example, a boot camp or the podcast, so we ask at a certain time to the listeners or to the participants of the boot camp, how is it going? And what are the things that you would like to see improved? And then we take them into consideration to design the next phase of the programs. And following the same logic, we have reconsidered how to deliver better our services, or at least how to also make clear the link between what we provide, the product services that the lab has been developing over the past 5 years, and then clearly establish the link with all of ITC projects. So for these 2020, we have run a survey at the last months of last year, and then this initial phase of this year, we have several co-creation sessions, and we decided to focus on specific challenges. And around those challenges, we're going to be developing our services, our traditional services, right? So these 4 challenges are the ones that you see on your screen: enhancing knowledge sharing, so improving all of the knowledge sharing in headquarters and between headquarters and the field. This was one of the needs that was expressed more notably when we had the field coordinators visit last year for the first time. And since ITC is growing and it's going more and more to the field, there is a need for that. The office space optimization, so it's part of how we configure new working spaces to also promote new ways of working, creativity, and also more comfort also for us. And then enhance also sustainability of ITC. As we are saying, all of in our projects, we are promoting more the mainstreaming of sustainability, so the gender, environment, youth angles. So all of these, it's already going and permeate our projects. So now we consider that also we need to take into account our culture and our working environment. So how are we going to make it more sustainable? And then the inclusive organizational culture, which is in there as one of the priorities also at the UN level, to mainstream gender, and not only gender equality, but also disabilities, LGBTQ community, and all of those subjects that can be taken into account in this area. And then, of course, we're going to continue with our cross-cutting activities, which are enhancing the culture of innovation, working on partnerships, sharing a lot of knowledge also externally to capture new best practices and also lessons learned of what is going on and outside of the organization, and what can we learn from as well. And also the work on communication. So that's pretty much attached to the podcast initiative that Katie was mentioning, but other initiatives also that we are going to be developing in this year. So that's, I think that's wraps pretty much up the presentation on the lab, and then now we are looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.